Yes, I'm Gavin Patterson, Director of Data at MEF, and we're going to be looking at the exponential rise of rich mobile messaging. So I don't know if that's a statement, a question, or whether there's a big exclamation mark, and we're going, really? The data we're going to be looking at today is from our 10th annual Consumer Trust Survey. We've obviously been doing it for 10 years now. We now cover 15 markets that you can see here. 9,750 people surveyed, 650 smartphone users in each market, and we now cover 55% of the world's population. Now, as part of the annual Consumer Trust Study, which is looking at control over your data, awareness of how your data is used, safeguarding, there's also an awful lot of other questions in there about how people use mobile and how they behave on mobile. Specifically, P2P communications, A2P communications, P2A communications, how much they get, what they get it from, and what their experience is. So that will feed into what we see here, the Business Messaging Customer Survey report, which is actually available now. It's on the website, or will be on the website maybe tomorrow for download. All of the data that I'm going to show you now is in this report. So if there's more you want to know, you can download the report from our website. So let's start with some good news, business messaging reach. So the total reach of the 15 markets we surveyed is now at about 91%, same as last year. So there's a question of, are we nearing saturation in terms of the people who actually receive business messaging? The light blue here, I've sort of divided them up between what we call the mobile first economies and the more developed economies. You can see that the highest level of penetration is in the likes of Brazil and China and South Africa, which is their sort of mobile first, where mobile overtook sort of fixed infrastructure, versus the more developed economies. And you can see at the bottom end of those, you've got Japan with 81%, Germany 87%, USA, Italy 88%. So there is a difference in what we're seeing in terms of reach between the mobile first economies, which are averaging about 95% of users, and the more developed economies, where there's about 88%. But overall, we're sort of seeing growth slow down quite a lot. So good news, 91% penetration. So while we have good news, we also have bad news. Spam. So spam is everywhere. We know it's everywhere. And it came down about 2 points in our survey this year to 47%, but it's still stubbornly high. Now, the difference here is not so obvious between developed and developing. It's basically everywhere. When you look at the high levels of spam, we've got red at the bottom in Brazil, where 61% of users said they've seen it. And then the other high levels of spam, the darker reds, Canada and Indonesia and Italy and South Africa and Spain. So it's fairly evenly mixed. There's not such a difference. Mobile first, we're seeing an average of about 48, and the more developed, about 46. You take Brazil out of there, it's much of a muchness. We also asked people about the fraud attacks they were getting as well, so whether phishing, spoofing was happening. And that basically follows whatever's being used in the market. So the biggest instances we see of fraud attacks is on whatever channel is the biggest. The most would be on email, if email was the biggest, second most on phone, third most on SMS, if that was the order. And the most growth we've seen in fraudulent attacks comes from the channel that's growing the most. So anyone want to sort of guess what that is? Which is WhatsApp. Oh, sorry. Go on. Have a guess. Just throw anything out there. Yeah, which is WhatsApp. So not giving the game away, but WhatsApp's seeing the most growth in that kind of attack. So, how do you communicate with friends and family? I'm going to go through some of the data here, because how people actually communicate with each other leads on to how they want to hear from businesses, which leads on hopefully to how businesses communicate with users. So this is the average. Hopefully you can sort of see it all. But the most used channel for P2P communications is WhatsApp, followed then by phone calls, and Instagram is number 4, Facebook Messenger, texting, SMS comes in at number 5, and email, TikTok, etc., etc. But you can see all the growth there. the growth over the 3 years that we've got in the survey that I'm showing here from 2022 to 2024, all of the growth beneath that in the green is all the rich channels. WhatsApp's gone up 8%, Instagram 6%, TikTok 4%. And at the bottom you can see the channels are seeing a decrease in usage. Snapchat, okay, a little bit, but SMS down 3%, email down 3%. So the sort of legacy channels that we think of that have always been there, email, SMS, phone, are the ones that are sort of seeing the biggest change in usage going down and the new rich channels going up. That's just average. The middle chart is showing behavior by age group. So WhatsApp, the biggest, same sort of order, but the legacy channels that we mentioned, so SMS, voice, and email, all progressively favoured by old age groups. The older the age group is, the more likely they are to use. The more established OTT channels like WhatsApp and Messenger, not far behind. You see a bit of a dip in the 55 plus, but Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, it's a progressively younger market. And we move across to the heat map. You can see here the change in the channel behavior and the change in the age usage of the channel behavior. So at the bottom, email, every age group is using email less. Texting, every age group is using email less. The one that's growing the most at the top, every age group, WhatsApp, TikTok. Got Telegram in there as well. If you look down the age groups, 55 plus, they're moving away from texting and email, and it's going on to WhatsApp and TikTok. The same with 45 to 54, they're moving away from email, phone calls, texting, they're all moving on to WhatsApp. So we can see a sort of general pattern emerging here, that the legacy channels are being used less and less across all age groups, and the new rich channels have been used more and more. So, preferred A2P messaging. How do you want to be contacted by the brands for commercial communication? So this isn't measuring how much they get in terms of OTPs or notifications. It's, the commercial messages that you get, how do you want to get them? Email is number one. It's always been number one. It's still number one. Most people want to get an email. Voucher, whatever, stays in their inbox. They can look at it when they want to. It's not urgent. They don't need to look at it. Second is WhatsApp. It has now overtaken SMS. More people want to get commercial messages on WhatsApp than SMS. Then it's phone calls, then we're down to Instagram, Facebook Messenger, etc. But again, you can see all the growth in green. WhatsApp, 6% over the 3 years. Then Instagram, Facebook Messenger. Phone calls, down. People want less phone calls. Don't bother me. Telegram, RCS, TikTok, SMS, flat. So again, sort of legacy channels, flat, are going down. The growth is in the richer channels. If we move on to the age groups again, see email is number one, and it's number one across all age ranges. Progressively favoured by the older, as we know. WhatsApp is number two, and preferred to SMS in every age group. Everybody would rather have a WhatsApp now than an SMS. SMS and voice not far behind. They're next. Now, if we look at the heat map again, we can see where people are moving from and where they're moving to. They're moving from email and phone calls, and they're moving to WhatsApp. This is how they want to be contacted by brands and business. So, common direction of travel. How do you communicate? Use of rich messaging channels is growing and across all age groups. Use of legacy channels, voice, text, email, is stagnating or falling, especially in older age groups. Because as we grow up, as we get older, we take our preferences with us. So younger people now, in the 55 plus, it'll all be Instagram or whatever is there at the time. How do you prefer to hear from brands and businesses? Again, preference for rich channels is growing, and WhatsApp across all age groups. Preference for voice and email stagnating or falling, especially in the older age groups. So what is actually happening? What are brands and businesses doing? I'll move on to the general findings, but obviously it's not homogeneous. Different markets have different behaviors. So I've taken 5 here. We've got Brazil, Latin America, India for Asia Pac, South Africa, UK and USA. So Brazil and India, very similar in terms of the order of what they do. It's WhatsApp first, then email, then phone calls, then SMS, then Instagram. So if you remember the messaging reach that we looked at initially, very, very high in Brazil, 98%, 94% in India. Now WhatsApp is the biggest market it has is India. It's huge in India, but there's more penetration, there's more reach of WhatsApp in Brazil, 70% versus 57% in India. And Brazil's high for email as well, much lower for voice, SMS, Instagram. But if you look at the difference between the top, should we call them mobile messaging? So where we've got WhatsApp and then go down to SMS. The difference in Brazil is 38 points. The difference in India is a lot less, it's about 17 points. So although WhatsApp is growing, there's still different levels in different markets. South Africa, so 97% reach, but a lot more traditional in its use of legacy channels. Email, text, phone calls, the traditional big 3 at the top. But WhatsApp is there as well, and Facebook Messenger. And it's highest in South Africa, email and voice in the 5 markets we're looking at here. And the WhatsApp usage in South Africa is even ahead of the more developed markets, we'll get to in a minute, UK and USA. So the UK and the USA, email, SMS, WhatsApp, USA, email, SMS, phone calls. iMessage is on the bottom there, which is an interesting one. So this is people saying how they get messages. We would maybe call it P2A. They've started a conversation, but they're recording the fact they're hearing back from companies, so we'll allow that to be iMessage. It might be the same with WhatsApp as well, because there's an awful lot of free WhatsApp businesses that communicate, but there's also the APIs, which is up until now really P2A driven. But again, we'll allow that some of that might be in there. Email in the UK, 46%, the same as email in the US. Texting, though, is a lot lower. And WhatsApp is nearer to SMS in the UK than Facebook Messenger is to texting in the US. Now, WhatsApp, we say, it's not a US channel. The US is the 4th largest market for WhatsApp. There's still about 80 million users there, but we just think most people there use Facebook Messenger. WhatsApp came fairly close after this. So again, it's WhatsApp. Altogether, looking at the average, global average for the 15 markets, email, phone calls, SMS, WhatsApp. This is what's being sent. But all the growth of what's being sent is WhatsApp, 8% over the 4 years. What's falling? Phone calls at the bottom. Texting is flat. Email, we're seeing a little bit of growth as well. On the age groups, email is now number 1 in terms of what's being sent and progressively favoured by all the older age groups, as we've heard. WhatsApp, though, is number 4. In what people want, WhatsApp was number 2. So there's a difference there between what's being sent and what people actually want, or channels being over or underutilised. Voice and SMS, not far ahead. But the general direction is WhatsApp's going up, voice and SMS going down. And you can see in the heat map as well, that's been reflected on the age groups and on the channels. Older users, in terms of what they're getting, are seeing less phone calls, less SMS, more WhatsApp, more Instagram. So most messaging is still sent over legacy channels, although email, voice, SMS are still the most widely used. All of the growth we're seeing is on the richer channels, and primarily WhatsApp. You can see here what's going up, what's flat, what's going down. The big growth, 8% on WhatsApp. So WhatsApp is catching up to SMS and voice, and likely to overtake this year, which will then bring us in line with what people actually wanted. They wanted WhatsApp more than SMS and voice. So we're falling in line with a preferred method of contact by users, and maybe ready for an exponential rise in rich messaging. So I've shown this slide before a lot. It's a good indication of the exponential rise. This is P2P messaging. This is what happened to SMS versus OTTs in the UK over 10 years from 2012 to 2022. So SMS fell by 115 billion messages over the 10 years. 76% of the volume has gone. Online gained 1.2 trillion, 3,600 times SMS at the end of 2022. But monetized, rich business messaging hasn't kept pace for a number of reasons. So this is from Mobile Squared. It shows you the spend on SMS versus richer channels. 2022, you can see there, rich messaging is actually a fraction of SMS, not 3,600 times. There's been very, very little development on monetized rich. The A2P, OTP, the A2P, OTT traffic we've seen has largely been free. WhatsApp business is free. The WhatsApp APIs, rather, we'd still call that P2A, it's not A2P. That's changed. It's going to be different. Moving forward, WhatsApp will be looking at the A2P market. Viber, RCS line, other channels that you could include in the pink here. Viber's, in some markets, it's got limited reach maybe. RCS hasn't really taken off for a number of reasons, reach, pricing. We moved to the end of last year, and the rich messaging is about 5% of A2P SMS. People still aren't using it. They use what they know, what they trust. Pricing, as we've heard, RCS, why am I going to spend 2, 3, 4 times what I'm spending on SMS to move to RCS? I don't have the budget. I use what I know and trust. That's changed. I think RCS tried to do that with basic, where it is the same price as an SMS. And where that happened, you saw massive, massive growth in the volume of RCS, something particularly in Spain and Brazil. Spain, in a year, by using basic RCS, saw RCS go up to about 5% of the SMS volumes. This year, at the end of this year, they're expected to be 30% by using basic RCS to get people on board, then to single RCS, then to conversational RCS. It's going up and up and up. Same in Brazil. WhatsApp has now moved from P2A to A2P. There'll be a lot more there. We'll be seeing a lot more traffic, a lot more conversational traffic. At the end of this year, it'll be up to about 11%, and SMS has now stopped growing. By 2027, so we're still talking about 3 years away, rich messaging will be approximately 70% of A2P SMS, which is where the P2P market was 15 years ago on that previous slide. So to sort of finish, if we go back to this and look at it and just change some numbers at the bottom, purely for a bit of crystal ball gazing, a bit of fun, that's where we will be in 2027. That's where we were. So moving forward from there, change the dates, and we possibly are going to see the start of an exponential rise in rich messaging. There's a report. All the data's in there. Please download it. Thank you very much.